All right, so today we got to talk a little bit more about the Great Reset, and that's because on Friday Justin Trudeau called it a conspiracy theory, right? And I mean, there's many there's many things that come to my mind when I hear that. Number one, how entirely predictable, number one. And number two, I think the big one too is just how stupid do they think the average person is? Like seriously, just how stupid do they think the average person is in that they're very open and honest about it. I mean, you go to this here from World Alternative Medias, and they link to the World Economic Forum Twitter post from August 7th, where they posted um, how we're resetting our future, and they quote Klaus Schwab, one of the the about as stereotypical of a villain in a movie that you can possibly think of. But nonetheless, he says the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. And again, they say this is directly from the World Economic Forum. Tell me again how it's a crazy right-wing conspiracy theory. And again, this is just how stupid the average person is. And again, I don't mean to be mean to people. That's not my goal. My goal is simply to just point out the ignorance of the average person and simply, um, I guess, criticize in that people need to wake up. Because again, this is no longer a minor political disagreement. This isn't some minute, old school left-right issue. Like, not to mention, it isn't even a left-right issue. Like, it's not political. It's, do you want? I mean, I guess it is political because in a lot of ways, what the whole goal of the Great Reset is to push socialism. So, in that way, it's very much political. But in the way of not wanting to become an authoritarian country, that's not political, right? But again, the pushing for socialism part is, I guess. And that is why Justin Trudeau is so all over this, right? That's why Justin Trudeau's so all over this is because in his mind, at least I'm guessing because he hasn't been straight up with it, but I think it's pretty obvious based off his love for communist China and the UN and all these bureaucratic, globalist organizations. Um, the goal is to become a one world state, right? A one world state. There's no such thing as countries. Everybody lives under communism, basically. Everybody lives under commune. And again, they've came out with the whole, you'll own nothing and you'll love it video too that they came out with. Which again doesn't make any sense because at the end of the day, someone has to own it. Like this is the what I always point out to the idiots that point out, oh, this rich person wants socialism, therefore we should do it, right? But they don't understand. Like, they don't understand is that there's still rich people under socialism. Like you have people that are naive enough to think, and again, calling them naive is an understatement. So let's not gloss over that. They genuinely believe that if you implement socialism, we're going to take the money from the rich and we're going to give it to the poor. No, what you really do is that to get one of these systems in place, you need to have the compliance of the rich, right? You need to have the compliance of the rich. So how they do it is they simply shield their wealth. And what really ends up happening under socialism is that you essentially take money from the upper middle class, right? The working rich, right? The doctors, the lawyers, like those people are they're very they're wealthy, but they don't have yachts, they don't have, several multi-million dollar homes, right? Like they're people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. You don't interact with the Bill Gateses of the world on a daily basis, right? So again, these people want, not to mention too, a lot of these people's wealth isn't tied up in ways that if the way that these progressives would want socialism, their wealth isn't tied up in a way that it would be at risk, right? Their wealth just isn't. So they would find out ways around it. But again, the main point that I'm trying to get at here is the Great Reset, right? This is how dumb they think the average person is. And the fact that they've said stuff like this, the fact that Justin Trudeau has said stuff like this, it's a testament to how stupid they think the average person is. Now, I don't even think the average person is stupid as they think they are. I think they're pretty dumb. Unfortunately, there are probably not people watching this. Like I said, unfortunately, most of the people watching this probably are well aware of this stuff. So good on you. But I'm sure because I know personally, I'm in this boat that you probably know a lot of people that are dumb enough to believe this kind of stuff. You probably know a lot of people that watch the mainstream media and believe anything they hear, right? Like Justin Trudeau called it a conspiracy theory on national TV, therefore it's a conspiracy theory, even though if you understood what the internet is and you had 2 minutes of your time, you would find out that he's lying, right? Like this is the thing that really bothers me about people these days, and it really shocks me. I think is a better way of putting it. It really shocks me that people can hold these beliefs that if they literally spent 5 minutes, 5 minutes out of their life, looking up opposing views or doing any research that isn't just pure confirmation bias, that their views would make no sense, right? Their views would make no. It's stuff like this. It's stuff like this, and it really just boggles my mind how people can literally go their entire life holding views and never do 1 minute, one instance of research into the fact that, hey, am I wrong on this? Like, could I be wrong? It just really shocks me. It really shocks me, and it's like I said, I think it goes back to the fact that they know how ignorant and just how uneducated the average person is. Because again, I don't think it's necessarily a lot of these people, willfully, talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to watch the mainstream media and I'm going to believe all the propaganda. No, that's not what people are thinking, right? It's not what people are thinking. They condition people from the time they're very young, in public schools and on TV and all this kind of stuff, to blindly, believe authority, to, not think for yourself. Like, at no point in your life are you taught that critical thinking is a good thing. You were taught your whole life that fitting in is the what everybody should strive for, right? Like all the the high school party movies and all this kind of stuff, right? The goal is to fit in. It's to be the same as everybody else. Stepping outside the out group is the worst thing in the world, right? Again, so that's what they do, right? That's what they do, and that's how they get away with stuff like this. That's how they get away with them literally admitting it and then turning around and calling it a conspiracy theory and having most of the people still thinking that it's a conspiracy theory. It's very funny, right? It's very funny. And um, I think the other point to point out here too is that this isn't about the virus too. This isn't about the virus. It's like I've been saying for a long time. They've had this plan in their back pocket for a long time, and all they needed was a reason to, or sorry, an excuse to implement it, right? Because this is how government gets through a lot of draconian things, right? Like what was it? I think it was the original income tax in the States. Number one, it was passed in World War I, and not to mention too, you have all these questionable bills, to say the least, that are passed like the day before Christmas, at like midnight, right? Or the day before that, right? They're passed at times to when it's deliberately designed so that most people won't hear about it, most people won't care about it because they have other stuff going on or whatever. Like this is how the government does this kind of stuff. When they want to pass these kind of things, they need to create a problem, right? It's the problem reaction solution, right? They either create a problem or allow a problem to fester, knowing what the solution already is, right? When the problem festers, they offer it up to the public because, again, they wouldn't be able to convince the public to do garbage like this if this whole virus situation wasn't going on. And again, it's not because of the virus, right? Like it has nothing to do with the virus and everything to do with the fact that most of these governments have destroyed their economies largely for no reason, right? Like nobody would want stuff like this. Nobody wants socialism when they're like, again, socialism is for people who want to take other people's resources, right? Because if you're confident in your own ability to accumulate resources, you don't want to steal it from other people because you can get it for yourself, right? There's very little satisfaction to winning when you didn't earn it, right? Like if you beat someone in a game and you cheat, there's not a lot of satisfaction in it, right? There's not a lot of satisfaction. And again, that's the same thing with this kind of stuff. So again, the way the government gets stuff like this through is during times of crisis, right? That's how they get this stuff through is during times of crisis, right? They a little problem comes up, like a small problem, because that's what it was. The whole virus situation was a small problem. They simply completely overreacted, allowed the problem to get far worse than it should have, and then they turn around and implement this stuff as the solution, right? They turn around and implement this stuff as the solution. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up here is from Paul Joseph Watson, and again he points out the Scotland death numbers. And again, they're very interesting considering Scotland has had 2,688 people die. I looked up the population of Scotland prior to doing this because I was curious. Scotland has a population that's just a little bit more than Alberta, right? I think they're at about 5.5. I think Alberta's at like what, 4.5, 5, and they have 20, almost 2,700 dead. Alberta has like what is it, a little under 500. So again, they've had way more people die, like way more people die. But yet, are they? I mean, we're every bit as paranoid here as we are there. Again, so this is number one of the many reasons to not be paranoid in Alberta. Again, we've had some new deaths. The deaths have ticked up a little bit, but not nearly as much as the case numbers, right? Not nearly as much as the case numbers. So, and the other thing to point out too is the amount of people that have died with no underlying health conditions is less than 10%. Like we seen the numbers last week. I think I posted about it, about the fact that 87% of people dying in Alberta had hypertension, and not to mention too, over 90% of people had underlying health conditions. And again, the numbers here bear out that as well. So again, something that needs to be pointed out here, again, not that I haven't done it a lot, but for the layman, is that um, if you have no underlying health condition, the chances of you dying of this are incredibly low, even if you're old. Until you go into that, 70, maybe in your 60 plus range, you have nothing to worry about, especially if you don't have any underlying health conditions. I mean, you look at Scotland, a population that's bigger than Alberta. They've had 4 people under the age of 50, and only 12 under the age of 60 with no underlying health conditions that have died from this. That's like one a month, right? Again, the idea that we need to be so worried about this, the numbers just don't bear it out, right? The numbers don't bear it out. We should be reopened, and we should have plans around, okay, how do we protect the really old people and the people with serious underlying health conditions. And the other thing to point out too is that many of these health conditions are lifestyle related. And again, if you have hypertension because you've ate healthy your entire life or for decades, you don't get to tell other people what they did with their life. No one forced you to eat unhealthy. Therefore, you have no right to force other people to stay home for no reason, right? So again, it's something that needs to be pointed out a lot, it seems. Um, and again, from CanGal48 here on Twitter saying, here are the flu stats for the whole country of Canada. A total of four cases in the whole country. We are being lied to on a daily basis. This is a scam. And again, of course it's a scam. Of course it's a scam. I think anybody with a brain can figure it out at this point. The unfortunate part is that that seems to be a minority of people. Maybe it's about 50-50, but I mean, you look at Jason Kenney or Hinshaw's Twitter comments. I mean, you look at some of the stuff you see on social media, it's absolute insanity. Like, it's just sheer and utter paranoia. Like, and not to mention too, like, who in the world still believes the government, like, on this kind of stuff? Like, it's so obvious they are either so incompetent that we shouldn't be listening to them, or they're lying to us, in which case we shouldn't be listening to them. Either way, we shouldn't be listening to these government figures. I don't care who it is. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. Jason Kenney, Doug Ford, Justin Trudeau, I don't care who they are. I don't believe any of them, right? I don't believe any of them, because they're all either incompetent or they're lying, right? They're all either incompetent or they're lying. Now, again, I think Jason Kenney is making a half decent attempt at this, but on the flip side, we need to go the other way. Like, we've tried all the BS mask mandates and lockdowns and all this garbage, and none of them have worked. None of them have worked. So, I mean, the only realistic solution at this point is to reopen it. But again, are you going to convince the majority of people to do that? I think you could, but I think the problem is, like I've mentioned, is that there's that very vocal minority that want to shut everything down, right? Like these are the people. I mean, they're mostly people that aren't affected by it. They're the public sector workers. They're the boomers that are retired and on their pension and stuff. It's people that largely aren't affected. Like I would like to see the percentage of people who stand to be without an income on what their opinion is on the lockdowns. Because if you can convince a majority of those people to lock down, then I would be for it. But again, you're not going to do that, right? You're not going to do that. And again, I don't mean people, some public figure who's no, I mean someone who works in the private sector, who stands to go from making whatever it is they're making to zero overnight if we lock down or close to it, right? So again, and again, if they actually wanted to scare us too, like this is another what if that I think of too, is that if they actually wanted to scare us, then that would be a poll they would do, but they never do that, right? They never do that because they knew it would show their bias. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on those, sorry, check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. But again, like I say, any support I can get, I very much appreciate. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.